What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are back with our final team of the Six Nations that has been announced. I've done this video a little bit after the other ones. I sort of got the other ones done. I haven't had a whole bunch of free time, so unfortunately Italy's been made a little bit later on, but it has given me a bit of time to see some of the reactions to some of the other videos. There's been a couple of comments on different videos talking about my pronunciation of some people's names. I'm awfully sorry if I butcher people's names. I'm not fluent in every language. I don't know a lot of the names sometimes, so if I do mess up names, I do try my best to pronounce names correctly, but please don't be offended if I mess up names, because it will happen sporadically and throughout the various videos. And moving on to difficult names to pronounce for myself, let's move on to Italy. So any of my Italian subscribers, and I know we actually have a couple, it's really nice to see that we have a bit of Italian support on the channel. I will probably butcher some of these names and I am awfully sorry. So Italy didn't have the best Six Nations last year. They lost every single game. They didn't actually come really close to standing out an awful lot. They went on to the Autumn Nations Cup. They managed to get that default win against Fiji, which everyone in that group did, which wasn't that much of a surprise. They actually did have a really good game against Scotland. They held out for 68 minutes and led most of that game, just to lose it, unfortunately, at the end for them, which was just a bit of fatigue that kicks in. We know does happen with the Italian team sometimes, which can be a bit of a shame. And then, of course, they didn't manage to get that win against the France team, which I thought maybe they were going to be able to do as a bit of a B squad France. I thought this could be the time for Italy to turn up and take on that France team. Unfortunately not. They were missing a couple of people, and I don't think it's going to be any different going into this Six Nations. Speaking of which, let's take a look at these forwards, and immediately to me jumps out just the number of people that are going to be missing from this team from one reason or another. Now, for those of you who've been with the channel for a little while, you know I'm not enormously up on my Italian rugby. I do try and keep up to date when we have these international matches, but at club level I don't know. So a couple of these names that are going to be missing, you guys may know well more than me, so feel free to drop it down in the comments why certain people are missing. But names that immediately jumped out to me that aren't on this team sheet: Geraldini, Ferrari, Bramstein, Pelledri. There's some others missing in the backs, in like Violi, Jaden Hayward and Minozzi. They're all missing out, so I think there's going to be a lot of injuries in there. I would be very shocked if you're missing people like Bramstein and Pelledri out of choice. I think they are brilliant for Italy. I think there's two of the absolute stunners for the Italian team, so I have to believe there's some injuries in there, and I think Pelledri went out before the Autumn Nations Cup. I might be wrong there, so I think there's probably carrying injuries over. So with that being said, there are a couple of new starters in here. I thought I'd put on a couple of little asterisks for people that are uncapped going into this team. There are still quite a strong bunch of forwards. One thing I'm noticing with these again, which we saw with the Scotland team, is a whole bunch of front rows here. Fischetti, Traore, Rimpelli, who is someone I don't know at all. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Luca Bigi, of course, we will see. Often he's the captain. We get to see him an awful lot. But going down the line, you know, Zilocci, there's a couple of people in there that do stand out to me. But what we can see is that nearly half of these forwards are made up of front row players, which says to me that the coach is trying to work on that Italian scrum, which is so heavy and actually can work so well. We got to see how well they did against Scotland in that Autumn Nations Cup when their scrum can pull together. But I think with a couple of people missing out in that front row, they're trying to find a couple of different combinations, and I think that's a great move on behalf of the coach, trying to work out what their best front three are going to be. So they've got a couple of number ones, couple of number twos, couple of number threes. I'm sure throughout this tournament we will see a combination switch to try and work out which three work best together. Moving further on, of course, we have Lazzaroni, who I think is a fantastic in that lock position. Favretto is someone, again, I don't know, unfortunately, but coming in uncapped, looking forward to seeing him. But overall, moving further down, Stoyan, Canone, Negri, Mbanda, Sisi, Johan Meyer. There are a couple of big names in this team, so Italy aren't going to be completely out and out. But one thing that did speak to me in these forwards is, and I'm sure some people will be able to correct me here, to me there isn't a standout number 8 in this team. And I know there's a whole sort of thing with Pelledri and Bramstein, and I think Negri, Johan Meyer and Mbanda can all sort of do 8, but they are sort of set flankers who move to the number 8, and we have seen a couple of different positions. But if there is someone in there, let me know, because to me there isn't just a standout number 8 there. So I think there's probably going to be a bit of mixing up in that back row, which is a bit of a shame for me, because in the Autumn Nations Cup I really felt Italy had their 1 to 8 pretty set, and I think injuries have taken that away from them a little bit. So hopefully that forwards pack will be be able to deal with it. Moving on to the backs. The backs are looking strong, actually. There's a lot of competition in every position across the board here, which I'm really liking. Callum Brayley, of course, is a superb scrum half. They are going to be missing Violi, so Callum Brayley will probably get the start, I would imagine. I do like Callum Brayley. I think he's very good. Palazzani's going to be there, along with Stephen Varney, who's also a very good scrum half, actually. So between the three of them, they've actually got a decent set of scrum halves that I think will work well for them. All three of them very quick scrum halves, actually, in terms of speed and passing out of a ruck. So I think their gameplay is going to be moving a little bit faster. Of course, moving further back to the fly half, Tommaso Allan. We just didn't get to see a lot of him last year, which is such a shame. He's worked his way all the way back into this Italian team, only to be met by someone who is standing out in that fly half position, Paolo Garbisi, who is in there, and I think, to me, Garbisi is absolutely dominating that number 10, and it's so nice to see Italy have so many choices at fly half. Normally they have none, but in the past sort of 2 years they've really built their fly half strength up. So now we have Tommaso Allan and Paolo Garbisi. They're going to be competing for that number 10. Carlo Canna, of course, is also a fly half, but they love to play him in that 12 channel, and I just don't think he's going to be able to compete for that number 10 shirt, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get to see Carlo Canna move into that 12 position again. The back line is always a bit of an issue for this Italy team. It's what I noticed last year. There seemed to be an awful lot of experimenting and not a lot of consistency, which is the shame for me. They have got Matteo Bellini back in, who I think is actually probably one of the best wingers in Italy, so I imagine he'll get a lot of game time. But across the board, what we did see with, of course, Trula, Sperandio, they won't have Minozzi, they won't have Jaden Hayward, but what we did notice in that Autumn Nations Cup is they moved people from the left wing to the right wing to fullback. They were trying them in every position, trying to find people set, and I really think they need to pick a position and let people play a few games in that set position just to see whether or not they work there and then move them on. I don't think it does them a lot of good to play one game and then move on completely to a different position in a new game. I think you've got to have a couple of games against different teams. To me, there's no point putting Trula on the right wing to go up against someone like Duan van der Merwe, only to then replace him and take him off and play him against someone like Hugo Keenan the next weekend. I think they're two very different wingers. There's very different levels of defence. There's very different levels of attack. I think you need to get people used to a position, see how their gameplay works in a set position, and then if they don't work there, move them around a little bit. Of course, Marco Zanon will be doing well, and I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more from Montano Ioane. I don't think we got to see an awful lot of him recently, so I'm looking forward to that. I believe he's doing very well at club level, and I think he's one of the ones that actually can switch between 11 and 14. I believe he prefers the 11 wing, but I think he can move to 14 and actually does quite well. So someone I am looking forward to see moving into this backline is going to be one of the uncapped players, and it's not someone I know, and I am absolutely going to butcher his name. I'm awfully sorry for all my Italian fans out there, but Juan Ignacio Brex is a player I don't know at all. I had to do a bit of research on him, but he looks like an incredibly defensive 13. He looks brilliant in terms of tackling. He's a really aggressive blitz defense runner. I'm really looking forward to see what he'll do. It's going to be a bit of a toss-up between him and Zanon, because Zanon to me is an incredibly attacking number 13, whereas Brex will probably be much more defensive. So I imagine they'll do a bit of interchanging there, depending on what sort of game they want to play against the set team they're doing. So really looking forward to see him. And then of course we'll move on to Luca Sperandio, who to me is probably the standout fullback out of them. I know there's a couple of them here that all play the various positions 11, 14, 15, but Sperandio to me is probably going to be the standout one that's impressed me the most in terms of that fullback. We did get to see a bit of Trula playing in that 15 position, but to me he just felt a little lost in terms of playing right at the back. A lot of backfield kicks coming towards him. I think putting him on against a team like England or Ireland that are big on kicking to your fullback, I think he'll feel a little bit lost. Sperandio to me feels like he's got a little bit more control over that backfield, so looking forward to see him. So as we've done with the rest of the videos, guys, this will be the final. I'm going to create my best 15 from these players. I'm sure everyone will have a bit of a disagreement on some of my choices, as it has been through it. So let me know down in the comments who you would pick for your 15 once we've gone through mine. So number one for me absolutely has to be Fischetti. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I think the experience that he's going to bring to that front row is going to be super important. I think with a lot of these people being mixed up, and some players I don't know in some of these prop positions, so there could be a chance for a bit of movement there. But I think Fischetti has enough experience that he's going to be able to bring to the team. Number two, of course, Luca Bigi is absolutely going to be there for me. I think he's a wonderful hooker. I think he's probably the best hooker I've seen in Italian shirt for a long time, actually. Of course, he's dominated that number 2 shirt for quite a while. He's taken over the captaincy, so I think he's going to be doing a lot of work in this front row, and I think this is where they're going to want to get things down. Zilocchi's going to take my number 3. Again, another solid player, bit of experience in there. I think having 3 solid front row players is going to be a big thing for this Italian team, trying to not lose scrums, trying to not give away penalties at scrum time, hold your own scrums and get the ball out. I think it's going to be a very important skill for them. Moving on to our locks, I'm going to chuck in Lazzaroni at 4 and Canone at 5. I think between the two of them, using the line out, they're both incredibly tall players. I think the line out has actually worked quite well recently for Italy, as long as they can get the ball straight. I know there's been a couple of issues with them not throwing the ball straight in at a lineup, but once they're in, I definitely think they can work it together. And this is such a heavy pack. I think they need to utilise the catch and maul a little bit more. I do think they run away with it a little bit and try and pass it out wide. I think they need to slow down their game a little bit and take control of the game, which I'll look forward to seeing, hopefully, in the Six Nations from this Italian team. And then moving on to the back line here, there's a bit of a mix-up here because, again, as I'm not 100% sure, there's no real standout 8s for me. So I've had a little look in, and I believe Johan Meyer and Maxime Mbanda can also play number 8. They sort of switch between flanker and number 8, whereas I know Sebastian Negri is superb in that number 6 position. So what I'm going to do is move Negri into 6, Johan Meyer, of course, would take 7, and I'll move Mbanda onto number 8, and between the three of them I think you've got quite a solid 6, 7, 8 there. I don't think it's the best Italy have to offer, but with players out and injuries and so on, I think this is probably going to be the best way for them to go. I think you've got 3 very strong and 2 very strong power runners, which I think will be very useful. I would like to actually see a little bit more of carrying out of the scrum from the Italian team rather than having to try and rely on passing it through the backs. I'd like to see a little bit more 8 playing off to 9 and then move it wider if they can take a few tackles in. Talking of that number 9, to me, Callum Brayley absolutely takes that number 9 position. I think he's brilliant. I'm really looking forward to seeing him making the most of not having Violi in the team. I think he can probably do a bit of standout work here. Number 10, of course, again, will belong to Garbisi. I think he's the best number 10 I've seen in Italy for a while. I feel so bad for Tommaso Allan that he hasn't been able to regain that number 10 shirt after he was so good for a couple of years in the Six Nations. But I think as long as Garbisi is in the form he's currently in, he absolutely deserves that number 10 shirt. My number 11, I'm going to go to Bellini. I think he works very well in that 11 position. I have seen him play 14. I don't think he performs quite as well, so I'd like to keep Bellini in that 11 position where he can make the most impact. I'm going to keep the Italian centre partnership that they love. I think it works so well. This to me is one of the strongest points in the Italian team at the minute. Carlo Canna, I think, is such a good player, and I think having him on as a sort of secondary fly half, playing that 12 position, similar to what England try and do, where by moving Farrell to 12, I think Carlo Canna is a bit of a gameplay maker, and Marco Zanon is such an attacking number 13. I think between the two of them, they create real danger in that centre partnership, and I'd love to see them use those two centres just a little bit more, rather than letting the big boys carry ruck after ruck after ruck. I definitely think they've got the skill between them to get some tries in there. And that means my number 14, I'm going to have Montana Ioane. I think he is such a quick player. He's also a brilliant footballer, and I don't think a lot of people talk about how good he is under control of a grubber kick. He's actually really good at being able to collect. He stays calm on the run. He's also faster than an awful lot of wingers. I'm going to look forward to him. I know he plays a lot of left wing, but I think to me Bellini is so much better in that left wing than on the right wing. I think Ioane can probably move to that right wing and perform better than I would see Bellini play on that right wing, and that's why I'm giving it to Ioane. And then finally, Luca Sperandio, as I said earlier on, I think he's the best fullback given the team that's been announced. I think there's a lot of switching they love to do between 11, 14 and 15, but out of everyone that I've seen so far, I think Sperandio is definitely going to be the best choice there. To me, if I could have a choice in there, it would definitely be Jaden Hayward. I love Jaden Hayward. I think he's such a good fullback. I'd love to see a little bit more from him. But I think for the team that's been announced, trying to make the most of what you can do will be Sperandio. But what do you guys think? Have I picked a good 15 there? Are there any decisions you would make differently? Would you add in some players that have been missed off this list? Like I said, I am not completely up to date on a lot of the Italian rugby, which I'm awfully sorry for. So if any of you do know about injuries or why players are missing, absolutely feel free to drop it down in the comments. Help me learn. I will be doing my preview videos that come up for the Six Nations for any of you that haven't seen it, where basically we chuck on a game of Rugby 20 of the two teams that are playing, and then I go through whilst playing the game, which gives you guys a bit of interesting visuals to me, and then I go through the real life teams that have been named, and we talk about who I think is going to do well, what I think the score's going to be, who do I think is going to win. It's all a bit of fun, so feel free to subscribe just so you know when those videos come out. I try and get all of them out before the Saturday. I do try my best. I don't have a lot of free time, time, but I always try and make sure I get those done. So make sure you're subscribed for that. Hopefully you've enjoyed today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this little series. I know a lot of people have had a lot of comments, different mistakes I've made, and missing out a couple of bits and bobs. It's my first time ever trying to do these big team announcements. I'm sure news is going to get past me. I'm sure people will be happy to tell me I forgot something that happened with this Italian team. I try my best. Hopefully you guys have all enjoyed. And if you did enjoy this series, make sure you drop a little like down just to show me that you did actually enjoy me going through all these teams that have been announced for the Six Nations. I've really enjoyed it. It's been quite nice for me to learn as well. Some people have been really nice down in the comments talking about different ways to pronounce names and different pronunciations of players, which has been really useful for me, which I'll take on now for some of the rest of my videos. Some people have been really useful in telling me about different injuries and things that I've missed, which gives me a bit of a heads up going forward into the Six Nations, which I'm really looking forward to. And for any of you that didn't see my other video that was about who would win the Six Nations, I have created a Super Brew app for any of you who fancy joining in with a bit of a fantasy rugby. There's no real prize, it's all free, it's just a bit of fun if anyone fancies it. I'll put the group names on screen for you guys now so you can see. If you feel like joining, absolutely go for it. I'll be doing it anyway, so if anyone fancies joining, feel free to jump in. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye bye.